The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here he is, Brandon.
All right, welcome back to the Brandon Peters Show. Today features a discussion of the 2009 horror film Jennifer's Body. Returning to the show for that, another staple guest, longtime love of the show, author Greg McGoon.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing well, and Oliver is with me right now, being fussy, but that's my dog for those listening.
Gotcha.
He's on my lap, so
Gotcha. Your
yeah.
2025 going all right, aside from world events? Drive us nuts every day?
Wait, yeah,
Gotcha.
Oliver. So, yep.
Before we get into Jennifer's Body, oh wait, that's a
Yes.
weird way to say that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that until after you said that. Yeah.
Before we discuss Jennifer's Body, you have a new book coming. I want to hear about it.
I do. I'm writing again. And I have a new book coming out March 18th. And it's actually a follow-up to the one that I did 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, or 3 years ago now, Once Upon a Fairy Tale, which starred Oliver, who is sitting on me right now. And what's fun is not only do I have a new book coming out, I have a new edition of the other fairy tale in a new extended, like enchanted edition, I'm calling it.
Oh,
So it is still an early reader book, but it is twice as long, the first one, so it could tonally match the new book. And the new book I'm really excited for it. I am finally excited about something in life again. With everything going on, I'm glad to have something to be excited for. And this time, so in the first book with Oliver and the fairy tales, Oliver met Snow White, Little Red Riding Hood, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, and joined into Beauty and the Beast. So those were like kind of the staples of the fairy tale world that he kind of encountered in book one. In book two, we mix it up a lot.
okay.
And he is on a new journey and he meets a little fairy that may or may not be Tinkerbell. And choosing between which way to go, does he follow or go with the fairy, or does he go after the white rabbit? And soon his world gets turned upside down when he learns to fly, thanks to a little fairy, and encounters classic characters such as Rapunzel and the Little Mermaid, as well as characters from Alice in Wonderland and Hansel and Gretel. So, I mean, Alice in Wonderland, I know isn't technically a fairy tale, but it still fits within that realm, within the
Absolutely.
world. And everything is based on the original fairy tales. But if you're familiar with the Disney versions of it, anything that I use from the original ones is overlapped, thankfully, in the Disney ones. So you don't need to read the original fairy tales to really understand who the characters are. But for legal reasons, they're the original fairy tales. But it's my new interpretation on it, and it's really special to me for a lot of reasons. It's a very emotional book. So far, every like test read that I've had has come back said, okay, yeah, we cried at the end. It definitely will get you to cry.
Oh,
Yeah, but not in a I don't want to like say too much about it, but it's a big journey of a book. Um, and it's still an easy read, but it just really discusses even though it's kind of masked within the fairy tales in that world, it really is a look into trying to understand how to live your life as well as the process of aging and what does that mean and what is left for us in life when we reach a certain point in time. So yeah, it's a lot of heavy themes within a children's like early reader book. But I think I handled it well. And because I used Alice in Wonderland, which was one of my biggest influences as a child, I like kind of the new little twist I put on Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, there's a lot of elements in this book that are very personal to me, and it's a really special book in tribute to Oliver, my dog, more so than even the first book. So it is still a fun read, but it is not as light and yeah, carefree as my other work.
So when you're using these fairy tale characters, is there like a load and you're like, wait, I'll save them for another book, or like, do you,
That, well, when I wrote the first one, I knew kind of what I wanted to do pretty quickly, and I hit all like the staples that everybody kind of knew.
mm-hmm.
And then when I started 3 years ago after I did the first one, I was kind of like, I have an idea for a second, but I didn't know what to do with it. The only thing I knew I wanted to do for the second one was tackle Tinkerbell. And I think a lot of that comes to mind when people start talking about what's public domain and what is
Mm-hmm.
like happening stuff. So I knew Peter Pan. Peter Pan's been public domain for a while though. Same with Alice, but I think oddly enough, the well, there's a few reasons which prompted the new one. There's a lot of talk about Rapunzel, and because that's going to be one of Disney's upcoming live actions. And Tangled is one of my all-time favorite Disney animated movies, uh, which I do think is superior to Frozen. I think Tangled is a stronger movie than Frozen. I'm not saying Frozen bad. I'm just saying Tangle as a movie is superior. So I knew I wanted to use Rapunzel and Alice in Wonderland because of my childhood stuff. And I went on a deep dive through every single fairy tale I possibly could, reading every one of the Hans Christian Andersen, every one of the Grimm's fairy tales. And it's in the format that I'm using to tell these stories, it is not easy to kind of, I mean, it is easy and it isn't easy. The ones that I chose fit perfectly into the story I needed to tell. I'll just leave it at that. So I think there was maybe the only one that I didn't include that I tried to was The Princess and the Pea. But otherwise, I think I hit up the ones that everybody kind of knows, and I incorporated them in a way that can be influenced by a dog because certain fairy tales are, well, even the original Little Mermaid is quite dark if you really read it. Most of the Goldilocks is really dark. If you read the
Yeah,
original
it
Goldilocks,
is.
which I tried, like she basically jumps out the window at the end and you don't know if she died or what at the end. And it's like, what is this
Well, the
ending?
Little Mermaid turns into foam in the sea,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
yeah, yeah, they're all
So
pretty dark.
they are dark. But luckily enough, I was able to. I think the biggest holdup for this new book was I knew I needed the Little Mermaid in there. Like there was no way I couldn't do a book on fairy tales if I didn't have the Little Mermaid. She wasn't in the first book. And I'm sitting there going, how in the world do I get a dog in water or get a dog like
Mm.
in this world? Because again, I'm not basing this on the Disney version. I'm basing this on the original fairy tale. So there's ways I could have incorporated it into a Disney version of it, so to speak, but not in the way that, but even then it didn't work for me. And then all of a sudden something hit me and I figured out a way. I like the way that I get to the Little Mermaid. I think it's funny. Hopefully readers also find it enjoyable, but I did find a way to include Oliver into the Little Mermaid to disrupt that fairy tale. But a lot of the through line is based around Alice in Wonderland. So it's really a fusion between Alice in Wonderland and you'll see what I did with Tinkerbell. I never refer to her as name, but it's her. Um, because I try not to name the characters unless they name themselves. Especially in this new book. So they all introduce themselves to Oliver, and it's just a fun mishmash of everything. I did the Mad Hatter is in the book, and that
Ooh,
is a great scene where Oliver does meet the March Hare and the Mad Hatter. Um, and that is one of my favorite parts of the book, and that was a add-on after I kind of mapped out the whole story and then started working through it. I was like, it's missing something, and
you
then
know,
I figured out what.
Alice in Wonderland. That story kind of lends itself to like you could do something with like just that is almost enough
Yes.
character. It's like I tell people about Marvel and the X-Men. I'm like, X-Men doesn't need to be big Marvel stuff because the X-Men itself is so large and full of just as many iconic characters and villains within the X-Men that it feels like too much to add to like an MCU type thing just because. And so that's like Alice in Wonderland's place in there. It's like, oh my gosh, you got like the Mad Hatter, the Queen of Hearts, the Cheshire Cat. You got like so many iconic things with the Alice in Wonderland. It's like a free for all.
It really, and that's kind of why, well, you'll see how I do. That's why this book, like book one, Once Upon a Fairy Tale, the first one rather, and the new one is Once Upon Another Fairy
Mm.
Tale. Oh, so crazy. Um, uh, and trust me, even debating on the title of it was a process. I had like Once Upon a Fairy Tale with subtitle options. I knew I didn't want to put a two in there, and then I was like, why can't I do another? And technically, I did. Well. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to. I guess there is the A Simple Favor, that movie
Hmm.
that has Blake Lively and Kendrick. They're doing another Simple Favor.
Yep.
That didn't even crossed my
Oh,
mind when
that's it. I
naming.
mean, there's a lot of sequels and stuff. They get another something like
Yeah,
that.
there are. Well,
Yeah.
not another teen movie. Well, no, that isn't even a
That was
sequel.
no, it's not a
That's
sequel, but I
that's not
know
even
the
a
word
sequel. That's just still, it just has the word another in it
another
because of.
stakeout. There's that one.
Oh yeah, So I mean, that's the thing is like, did I want to go more traditional? And to be honest, it worked the best.
Hmm.
Subtitles felt clunky, and yeah, it just I don't know. This kind of the book kind of magically like happened to me, and being able to use Alice. And again, it's not as structured as the first one where Oliver kind of is chasing book pages, and he's kind of in the first one, he's kind of in the book. He's in the books, like he kind of gets
Hmm.
sucked into world of magic and everything else. In this new one, it starts off where he's very old and he's on like out in the woods with his dad. And that's kind of so he's out in the real world when this new one comes. So it isn't so much like sectioned off as the first one was, where the fairy tales aren't isolated from each other. There's a slight recognition between characters.
Okay.
So yeah, like Little Mermaid's probably the only one that's really more contained. But like in this world that I built here, Rapunzel is aware of Alice, is aware of other. You'll see how it is kind of done. They don't live in the same universe, but they do. You'll
Okay.
kind of see just Oliver's arrival in this new world kind of disrupts everything as he kind of is back in the woods, and it helps that a lot of fairy tales take place in the woods. And I do have some subtle nods to the musical Into the Woods in this new book, just because
Hmm.
I like putting a lot of Easter eggs in there. There's a lot
Yeah.
of little things that I did for my own sake that I put in there. Whether people get it or not, who knows? It would be helpful if you have some knowledge of the original fairy tales, or not the even, or have some knowledge of the character. Like if you know what Alice in Wonderland is, you know what Rapunzel is. If you know the stories, then it'll be helpful. If you go in completely blind, then the book might be feel a little random to you. But um, because I don't want it to be, I didn't want it to be like a narrative rehashing the book before he like the original is before he entered the story. Yeah, if you're familiar and you love fairy tales or you love Disney stuff, then you'll be able to find appreciation for this book, and be ready for an emotional ending. And that's all I will say.
Gotcha. If you make a third one, could you use Hans my Hedgehog,
Uh,
a little known grim fairy tale creature character?
Hans my hedgehog.
Hans my Hedgehog. There's a grim fairy tale. I was looking up where a couple wants a child so badly they say they even settle for a hedgehog. So something gives them a half hedgehog, half boy named Hans my
Oh,
Hedgehog. It's a child.
I mean,
Bring it
oh God.
back to the public conscious. Make, you know,
I mean, I mean, I'll put it this way. If I do another one, which I don't think I will because I really this one has a beautiful ending. Like I would have to pull like a Disney move and do like a Once Upon a Fairy Tale like one half, something
yeah.
like in between two books. Because like book one, he's like a very young puppy. Book two, he's like very old and barely
Okay.
functioning. So, but like obviously when he gets transported into this like kind of world and the pixie dust and everything else, he gets his youthful like vigor back. But um and he like the vitality, like he's just there's a full of life moment within it, but I really tried to again doing a lot of research on fairy tales. I wanted for the first book because I did a rewrite of it, not a rewrite exactly. I did like an expansion of it. I
Hmm.
wanted to include maybe one more fairy tale character in it, just so there's like something else to like, ooh, surprise. And no, the only ones that I could have used for book one are in book two, and I wasn't going to take them away from book two. I won't say which one that is, but I just needed to keep it all contained within the woods. Although, like I said, I do make it to the ocean for the Little Mermaid,
Yeah.
myself for that one. And yeah, I think it's just they're fun stories. I think I'm kind of done with fairy tales now. I think I've kind of tapped my resources on that in terms of doing reinterpretations or kind of alternative versions of the fairy tales that we all know and love. But I am writing again, and that is what is exciting. And I actually finally have revisited after 10 years. Um, I know, I can't believe it's been that long. Revisited a fairy tale I started 10 years ago,
Dang.
which would be all original fairy tale. Well, this year also, and I'll do one last shout out, is the 10-year anniversary of my second book, The Royal Heart,
Oh
which
yeah.
kind of put me on the map with it because it features a transgender princess. And
Mm-hmm.
that came out 10 years ago. So I'm trying to come up with a thing to do a 10-year kind of celebration of that book, kind of what happened when it first came out, because I was bombarded with press at the time, and it was, I mean, if you look it up online, I am the writer of the first traditional like fairy tale with a transgender princess. And it has been fact checked. And we're talking more of like that traditional like Grimm's fairy tale, like Once Upon a Time type, not
Mm-hmm.
like not like anime or anything that's been before that, but in the context of the way I did it,
Mm-hmm.
it was me doing it the first. And given kind of what's happening in society right now and everything else,
Mm.
I feel like I want to do something kind of special, and we'll be donating any book sale profits to trans organizations to
Good. Yeah.
help that, because why not? And I think it's just, and the book isn't even about, that's not the core of the story, even though it has um a child that like becomes their true self in that book. The book at the end of the day is about love and acceptance, and that's why I wrote it. It just, the catalyst of it was the king and queen had a child that they thought was going to be the next king of the land, but it turns out that the their child would be the next queen of the land. But either way, they are still a leader. So the message I think holds even truer now, and I think we need it. So
Yeah.
10-year anniversary of that book. And then, like I said, that's kind of motivated me to revisit a fairy tale with a gay prince in it that I started 10 years ago that is going to move more into a YA book. So this will be
Okay.
my first foray into YA books.
Nifty.
Yep.
We'll look forward to all that. Um, and keep up the good work and keep pushing those out and following
Yep.
it. But yeah. Also, and do you know when the new book will be available or?
Yeah, the new book. So the re-release of Once Upon a Fairy Tale Enchanted Edition is February 25th, and the new book, which I think pre-order links hopefully will be up soon. I know the ebook on Amazon pre-order link is up, but it will be available in hardcover and paperback, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, etc. And that is out March 18th. So the new book is March 18th. And if you want to familiarize yourself with like just context and the character and anything else, the re-release is out February 25th.
Excellent. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, we will move on to our film topic for today, which is Jennifer's Body.
Where are we going? Help me!
When they left her for dead,
They killed you. I'm still here, aren't I?
something inside Jennifer was unleashed. On September 18th,
Are you scared?
no way. Revenge is sweet.
I'm not gonna bite you.
Jennifer's Body.
You want it?
Rated R.
Directed by Karen Kusama, written by Diablo Cody, starring Amanda Seyfried, Megan Fox, Johnny Simmons, Adam Brody, Amy Sedaris, Kyle Gallner, Chris Pratt, and J.K. Simmons. A newly possessed high school cheerleader turns into a succubus who specializes in killing her male classmates. Can her best friend put an end to the horror? This is Diablo Cody's follow-up to Juno. Diablo Cody, who graduated from Iowa, just like the great Caitlin Clark, who graduated from Iowa as well. So this is Kusama's first film since Aeon Flux in 2005. So there's the 4 years between films. And she, in the meantime, in between that, she directed one episode of The L Word. And this is a tried and true cult classic. You know, a lot of that term gets thrown around by the social medias in terms of, well, I saw this movie and I don't see people talking about it, but like they tend to call movies that get nominated or won Academy Awards and or had a big box office as cult classics or well reviewed. You know, like there's certain things you need to be a cult classic, but this movie came out poorly reviewed, 46% critic, 36% audience score on the aggregator Rotten Tomatoes. It made, like, money wise, it made 16 million domestic, about 32 worldwide on a 16 million budget. Not good. So, and of course, was not nominated for any Academy Awards. So therefore, being found later, true cult classic. I did look up, so it opened against Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Informant, and Love Happens. So four major, those were the days when you could release four, wide releases in a weekend. But it finished fifth, but only dropped 47% the next week. But the week after that, week 3, it dropped 66. And I think the films that opened that weekend were Zombieland and Whip It, and I think the combination of those drew people away from Jennifer's Body. But it was not like it was kicking any ass at that time. But I saw it when it came out. Did you go, Greg, when it came out, or?
I did. I saw it, dude. I both liked Amanda and Jennifer. Like, I liked them both. So I said, sign me up. There's a movie with both of them. I'm in. And I like this genre of movie. I like kind of satirical horror. So I didn't realize it was a flop at the time because I remember talking about it. What is hard for me to process is it's 2009. I swear this movie came out when I was in college. So it didn't. I was living in New York when it came out. So I'm confused on, like, that's why. And then I rewatched it again and I was like, it does not feel it feels earlier. It feels like it's like a 2006 movie.
It feels well, and to me I was like, this feels like, at times it feels like it's got the joy of like an 80s movie that nobody said anything about back in the day, and then you found, and like everybody forgives any shortcomings because of that. But they also the movie that I gets compared a lot to Ginger Snaps. It feels like that early 2000s, late 90s kind of feel, which that if you look at Cody, I'm sure that's where she's coming up and that's where her experiences come from. So it feels that way with the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of in this, it doesn't have a reliance on technology. So therefore it's kind of Anytime USA because it doesn't lean on any tech.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. It really is a contained story, which maybe that's why I feel like it is older than it actually is.
And plus, it's a super small town that it takes place in, too. That adds to it as well.
And I think the fashion kind of feels a little bit pre-2009. But again, like, I feel like the movie, again, I liked it when it first came out, so I didn't really understand why it was considered a flop. I thought it was fun. I'm glad people appreciate it now, but to be fair, I feel like honestly, if it was made now, it would do really well. Like, obviously it's doing well now as like people discovering it, and it doesn't feel that old. But I feel like if this was a script and never had been made and was like brought to a producer now, they would be like, "Oh, how fun. It's like an early 2000s movie that we're doing now." And I feel like that's so current with, well, Netflix doing those like early 2000s movies as kind of vintagey things, which is weird to think too
Mhm.
that early 2000s is vintage now, but 20 years. Um I think of this story, yeah, I think it was presented today as a story taking place back then, it would have started out as a hit
I
rather
think
than become a classic.
part of it too, like I think is where horror is when this comes out. It's horror's not yet as feminine as it is now with
Yep.
things, and it's also in this weird period. It's about in a couple years, horror's gonna like pick up and just be like accepted better or like grow in fandom somehow because this 2000s period where there's a bunch of remakes coming out a lot. Saw movies, hot like the where it gets labeled torture porn. It's like a real turnoff for people that for horror fans, for general audiences, and then we're about to hit this strain where like James Wan does like Insidious, Conjuring, and like they just start being like more popular again, or just people randomly like horror's been somewhere in the 2010s. Horror picks up, runs with it, and we're still there. Like they, and it's not like this was over budgeted. This is 16. That's not bad.
No.
I don't think. I
But
mean,
like this is following like because it doesn't if because it what Mean Girls came out in 2004 and like
yep.
Amanda was put on like the spotlight, which is wild to think that was 20 years ago, but that was a big deal when obviously Mean Girls musical
She had
movie came
Mamma
out.
Mia the year before, so
Yeah.
she's
But that's what I
showing
mean is
herself
like
as a
she was
lead.
big. She was
Yeah.
big already by the time this movie came out, which when you watch it, it almost feels like this movie happened before those other things in its
Yeah.
own weird way. So I mean, I'm impressed that I'm glad that she did it. Like to
hmm
be fair, like after like well, okay, now I need to think about like the timeline of filming because Mamma Mia did when did Mamma Mia actually come out? That came out
Summer
when I
of
was
2000, summer 2008, because that movie actually made more than Iron Man globally. But yeah, Iron Man
yes.
set the tone for cinema, and Mamma Mia apparently did not. So
Yeah. So well, I mean Mamma Mia got a sequel all those
it
years later
did, but
and then
it didn't span a
Mamma
cinematic universe and have every studio trying to make cinematic universes and stuff.
Yep. But I'm trying to think of what was the turnover rate of production to release of this movie. So she would have already have filmed Mamma Mia and
Yeah,
everything else.
because this
But
was a
then
whole. This was shot. Began shooting after the strike was over for the 2008 or something. It was something. I think they started shooting it mid 2008.
so so Amanda didn't really experience she was filming this movie before the full understanding of the success of Mamma Mia then.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like Mamma
hmm
Mia hadn't been out yet. She was filming this, and after Mamma Mia, so you would have thought that the momentum because this wasn't that long after Mamma Mia, you would
hmm
have thought that would have been a draw because everybody's like, "Who is she? Who is she?" And then you're like thrust into this other movie, um,
I mean,
but I guess yeah.
yeah. Well,
What?
there's an iteration of this movie where it's Emma Stone and Blake Lively. So
Oh my goodness,
Emma
I can't
Stone
even.
is Needy and Lively is
Yeah.
Jennifer. Which after seeing like we just talked, a simple favor or whatever. Yeah, that's Blake Lively doing the Jennifer stuff there. Like
Yes.
she's yeah out. She could pull that off. Um, but when it actually goes to production, it's signed on and going with Megan Fox, and then um, Seyfried comes on later.
Oh, interesting.
But
Well, okay. Megan Fox is good. I'm sorry. Like, I will
yep,
defend that woman. I think she is a talented actress. There's a life behind her eyes. She is not only like sexy, she is cute. She is fun. She is intelligent. She is playful. Like, she brings a
she's
life to things.
fearless. She remember because she said some shit about Michael Bay, and then like Spielberg kicked her out of the Transformers movies.
And
Granted,
she's a talented actress.
yeah.
Um, she is a talented actress, and you know what? Like, I love Emma Stone so much.
Mhm.
So, but here's the thing. I fully believe Amanda and Jennifer are like Needy and Jennifer
Mhm.
as friends. I believe the two of them as actual friends. And what's kind of nice about this movie, even though it's kind of weird because you look at Amanda and you know that she's a beautiful woman. There's no denying that. And she's
Yep.
always like in Mean Girls, she was like the dumb hot girl. Like she is the beautiful woman. So it is kind of funny that it did play into that early 2000s trope of like, just like kind of frizz up the hair and like, you're the homely one now slightly. But what I appreciated about this movie is she was never really considered unattractive or unappealing. Like in an early 2000s movie, that character would have been the one that needed the makeover. And in this
Mhm.
movie, like, nope, I've got a boyfriend. I'm like good. Like, I'm cute. Like, even like Jennifer is aware that like their friendship, that they're both like attractive people, but in different ways. And I think I appreciate that, even though Jennifer's is more kind of overt and just out there, which is the whole point of the character too. And Amanda's character is more of that kind of self-proclaimed nerd, but there is a general recognition that they're both still attractive
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
In other movies, the Amanda character would not be classified, like again, early 2000s movie, the Amanda character would not have been considered cute.
Yeah.
They would have been like that girl. And I kind of appreciate that they didn't go that route with it. Like they gave Amanda like a quite comfortable life in this small town. Like the boyfriend, she has the good friend that's Jennifer. Like she's
Mhm.
doing fine. She's not bullied. She's not like yeah, she's just kind of that girl in school. I mean, she was kind of bullied with that lesbi gay comment
Yeah.
at the beginning of the movie. But like I don't even think, but that wasn't even, I didn't feel like that was an attack on like being gay. I think it was more on that kind of dewy-eyed look that she had towards Jennifer, which is like, because again, from an outside view of like that kind of woman in the bleachers making that comment towards Amanda's character, I feel like that is more of a reflection of kind of how Amanda views Jennifer as like otherly sometimes. Like, even
Mhm.
though Amanda's like, she's my best friend, there's still, I think, in Amanda's mind is like, wow, she's like a celebrity in Amanda's eyes. So that is an interesting kind of um thing for her character to reconcile this like long-term friendship, but also this kind of like idolization towards
Or-
like celebrity status of Jennifer, which I think the movie does a really nice job of blending those two things where you just kind of like look at your friend and you're just kind of amazed that you're friends, but then you also don't self-deprecate like, why are we friends? Why would she be friends with
Well,
me? Like there isn't.
her boyfriend does that with her, asking like, "Why you guys have nothing? You guys aren't alike or whatever." And I think that's what kind of clicks to her slowly realizing it's not that. It's like, oh, I'm attracted to her. That's part of my reason I'm still around her or still care so much, is because
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in, and that's what I deep down want, but I don't realize yet.
Yep. And I mean, well, I mean, let's be real. How often have we like just not sacrifice parts of ourselves, but had to like lie to ourselves when we're just attracted to somebody and
Yeah.
like the things that we go like it's fully believable. Like I definitely have put up with stuff or with people I don't have that much in common with just because I am so attracted to
It's got
them.
a commentary
And
on how much you put up with an attractive person, like how looks
yes,
can get you in a place
yep.
to go
But
somewhere.
like I still believe why they're friends. Like I don't feel like it is that there isn't that much of an imbalance between the two of them. They're just different. Like they just kind of went on like the sandbox love that they had, as like Amanda said at the one point, like it developed, and like Jennifer went into a more physical approach with herself. But then again, this movie is a satire. It's kind of taking that interpretation
Hmm.
of how men view women as like just their body. And like Jennifer is literally the embodiment of kind of that notion of, well, like, I got my body, I'm gonna use it type of thing. But there is still a playfulness between the two where I actually believe Amanda and Jennifer or Needy and Jennifer would be friends compared to something like in Mean Girls, where I get why the Mean Girls are all friends with each other, but it's such a power dynamic. I
Yeah.
didn't feel as much of a power dynamic
No.
in Jennifer's body between the two of them. So again, if you watch the movie like carefully, and I watched it actually 2 times in preparation for this because I watched it the first time, I was like, that is fun. And then I put it on
Hmm.
again and I was like, oh, I didn't even notice that this next time. So I really tried to get into that headspace of what it was trying to do and everything else. And then I started going down a little bit of a rabbit hole with people claiming it's a big feminist movie. And then there's articles saying it's not a feminist movie. And it's just kind of interesting. And I'm just looking at it as it's like a slice of life type of movie where it
Yeah.
is kind of representing w- I mean, and again, I like the approach that they had with the band and
Yeah.
what kind of converts Jennifer into this like thing, even though it is finally like a movie that doesn't explicitly um what's interesting is it doesn't like the attack on Jennifer wasn't in the movie at least, even though it's kind of a metaphor for that, it wasn't in a sexual way. It
No.
was actually for the men's own, like, kind of sell your soul to the devil for fame type of situation. And that joke of like, we must sacrifice a virgin and
Hmm.
it backfiring. But I kind of appreciate that these men weren't rapey in the end. They were
No.
still shit human beings, but it's like at least it's not rapey.
Well,
Like,
they have like an overconfidence to themselves where they think they can look and spot that I've been around the other version and stuff like that, and they don't need it, and they look at her as some lesser being, and they wouldn't want to like
yep,
they seemed it would it would mm, sully or whatever their cleanliness by if they went for her. So that's kind of what it feels like. Like she's some like demon already. That
yep.
the way they approach that, if they were to touch her or whatever, do that. But um, yeah, it's kind of their own arrogance that leads it all there. Because there's even the scene like right before, and it's hilarious when the bar is on fire, and they're Jennifer and Needy are like freaking out there, and there's Adam Brody just like chilling, having his drink in a glass, like, hey, what's going on? Hey, we're you know, that's the sort of arrogance that they have. Which I do think that the Needy and Jennifer is like a great yin and yang because Needy likes that Jennifer takes her out of her shell, like 'cause she'd be at home reading a book or something on, but she takes her out to get her out of her shell, experience new things. And then for Jennifer, Jennifer knows that Needy is eventually going to stop her from going too far at these things. So they have this perfect little, without even being spoken, you can just kind of see it in the movie and see how their relationship works like that.
And I do see them like showing a mutual respect in the way it was directed. I thought it was
Hmm.
directed well because
Very well directed, to be
and
honest.
it was really well directed. And I mean, Diablo Cody has a very stylized form of writing,
Hmm.
which you either like it or you don't.
Right.
Um, but I appreciate it just because it does kind of it does kind of take you out of like the real world and kind of puts you in an alternate universe where people kind of talk in these strange phrase. I mean, even how they greeted each other with like monostat and Vagisil or something like that.
Yeah.
Just at the beginning, like just weird little like just one-liners that Diablo like throws in there, which is fine, but they sell it. I think
Hmm.
the way it was directed, the way they performed it, were able to sell her dialogue. So I think if you don't like her I think if it doesn't work, I think it's a team effort. I think for her writing, it requires a certain director and requires certain actors
Yes.
to commit to it. That's more of what it is. You can't just hand the script to everybody and it to work.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that about her as a writer. But at the bar, even when, and again, I noticed this because in so many other movies, I get so tired of unnecessary like problems or blow-ups being like, why are they fighting over this? Is not a thing. And at the bar, when the guys kind of start acting really like shitty, or Amanda or Needy starts telling the guys off, that's my friend,
Mhm.
like he's blah blah blah, and then like goes to Jennifer and like basically Needy like scared the guys away and talk shit. In other movies, like that Jennifer type of character, if handled wrong, would be like, "Oh my God, how dare you? I can't take you anywhere. You're just gonna scare off guys like that." And in this movie, Jennifer's like, "Oh, thanks, like, boo, those stupid guys." Like there was that recognition that like Needy really does have Jennifer's back, and Jennifer just kind of accepts that and isn't like the frumpy like causing problems, because I've seen too many movies where like the hot friend would be so annoyed that it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, why are you so difficult? Like, why'd you scare those guys away? They're just being boys."
Well,
And this,
she wouldn't go to talk to the guys in those movies. She would go and pull Jennifer aside and say, "They said this," and she's like, "No, I don't." Blah blah blah. That's what
that's true. That
sometimes
is
they
true.
do.
That's another good point.
And I love how they Kusama uses a split diopter shot as she's playing the pinball machine, and the guys are talking, and I'm like, "Oh, some Brian De Palma shit going on right here. I love
Yep.
it. I love it."
There, there's just so many little things that are done in this movie that make you appreciate it more and more.
Hmm.
And even though it starts getting kind of more and more far-fetched. But so I read one article because again, now it's been picked up as like a cult classic. Everybody's recognizing it.
Hmm.
And a lot of people are coming out being like, and it's such a feminist film and blah, 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 blah. Yes. And then I was looking it up and I did find this article about like why this movie is not feminist. And it was written by a woman too, luckily. And I was like, okay, this is the article that I'm going to read. I'm curious to know why they would say it wasn't feminist. And the key point to that article was more so that why is it that when, and I have my own theories on it too, which make me like the movie even more. Um, why is it that Jennifer, when she becomes the demon after the incident, starts killing just random men? And that's what the whole point is like, no, movie just makes women like look bad and like be hormonal and crazy and just like kill any man, even if they're like decent guys, because she just goes on a killing spree. And it's not even like revenge, like it's not like a revenge thing, like, oh, I'm gonna turn into a demon and just go after all these other guys, because it's Needy who ends up killing the band in the end, almost in like Jennifer's honor, because the demon kind of transfers souls at the end of the movie. But why is it that Jennifer, rather than becoming this kind of like hell bent on revenge with these guys, just kind of takes life form out of the guys? And so for this person who wrote the article saying it was anti-feminist, and it just is like just a slam on women where they're just going to attack men for the sake of being men. And I thought that was an interesting thing. Like, yeah, it would have made sense for her to have gone on like this revenge path of just like, I'm gonna take down the, like, I didn't die somehow. I'm gonna take down the men who murdered me or tried to murder me. But then I thought, if you're a teenager, and in general, like men being shitty is something that, I mean, I have a lot of female friends, and on the regular, I get texts from them going, I hate men. And I get it. Like, there is this kind of general societal approach to how dating is difficult. Men are difficult. Men treat, and again, there's exceptions to everything. But I think this movie makes Jennifer the demon and kind of just going after men in general, or like getting her life out of kind of taking the life
Hmm.
of other men. Um,
Well, I want to note something while we're on that topic of that. Guest of the show, Molly Henry, back in 2021, for her series on a site called Certified Forgotten. She writes a monthly article there, typically called Uterus Horror. And she wrote about Jennifer's Body back in 2021. And she noted that Jennifer's Body checks multiple uterus horror boxes. There's the obvious connection, which is Jennifer's demonic cycle mimicking a menstrual cycle. Yet the true heart and soul of this film is how it conveys the way teenage girls are viewed in a society dominated by straight, white, cisgender Christian men. Young girls are nothing but more than objects, and their value is determined by their sexual experience or lack thereof. It's a powerful and important point being made by Diablo Cody and Karen Kusama that is sprinkled with humor and splattered with gore. Needy truly said it best. Hell is a teenage girl.
yes,
Yeah.
agree with that statement. That's basically the point, that like I feel like this is more of like, again, that like kind of scathing satire, or like scathing attack on just the general attitude of men towards women and Jennifer reclaiming that in general. Like it's not about those men in particular that like did this to her. It's
Mhm.
kind of this flip on the male gaze of, you know what? Everybody just thinks I'm a fucking body. Everybody just like
Mhm.
that's just what like a woman is good for. Well, you know what? Like, no, man. And so I like that it isn't I like that it isn't just a revenge thing. I think it empowers her even more, even though it sucks that random guys are getting killed. Um, I, I like I like that something so horrific happened to her. And
Well,
and
the guys that
again,
get killed are all like super sensitive guys too. That's the that she goes after, which is a very interesting touch to the movie.
I know. I wondered, well, that's the thing when she makes out with when Needy and Jennifer actually finally kiss and then or no, it's towards the end when she starts going after like Needy and she goes, I go both ways or whatever when
Hmm.
Jennifer says that. I wonder though, in this world, would Jennifer kill a gay man? Like
Hmm.
that is what's funny. I was like, I feel like the only people like safe in this universe are gay men
Maybe.
because I mean, I gen it sounds wild, but that is a real thought that went through my head because like if I were in school with Jennifer, 100% would have been her friend. Like I would have absolutely tried to be her friend. I would have thought she was so funny, but like hot, like I would have been her friend. And I'm going like she has no like for women, a lot of the times, which I think, I don't know, maybe it's just because of the friends I have, but I think they feel safe with a gay man because they get some of the benefits of being with a man, but they also don't feel that kind of pressure like they would with a typical man. And they also, it's different than like a female-female friendship where there is maybe an underlying like competition or that idea of like,
Right.
oh, this girl is getting married and I'm not, or whatever. But with like a gay man is like the least harmful thing for them because potentially ideally they're going to be honest and like they're going to be supportive, they're going to sympathize and they relate to the mishaps and trials of dealing with shitty men.
Well, there's also
So
they also get like from my perspective and how I've seen it in real life and how it's portrayed in media and stuff. They also get a sense of the sort of worship from the male, but without the ulterior motives of that
yes.
worship.
Yep. Yep. When we love our women, we love our women and we support them through and through.
Yeah.
We do that with our pop girl, like our pop star celebrities, which we like idolize. And yeah, and like other celebrities, but like that, like anybody fucks with one of my girls, I will take them down. Like that's just I don't fuck with my girls. So I feel like in that world, I was like, maybe so I can watch this movie and being like, no, that sucks for everybody, but I'm safe. It's one of the few movies I feel like I'd be safe in. But it did kind of suck because what was his name? Was it Colin, the emo goth kid? Was his
Yeah,
name
Kyle
Colin?
Gallner.
Yeah. I think his character was Colin or
Colin.
something.
Yeah, it is
But
Colin. Yep.
yeah. Um that one kind of sucked like for his death because he and even Needy made a point about that of like he is a good guy. But I think her attacking even guys that are actually generally considered good also plays into the fact that like there are so many shitty men out there that women start becoming desensitized. At least these are from stories that I've heard from my girlfriend.
Hmm.
Start becoming desensitized that you really don't know what a good one is anymore. Do you think it's an act? What exactly is it? It's so hard to differentiate or decipher between like quality and not because you almost lose like you lose a part of yourself. You lose that trust where you think that maybe they're good, but then you're like every bad experience hits you over the head and you go like, no, there's got to be you start self-sabotaging. And and this movie almost reflects that idea of like her going after good men. But again, she has no context. We as the viewer are seeing these people outside of like scenes or outside of other things. But for her, she's going after men in general because she was violated horrifically. And again, some things say, and I think that was the intention of it, even though it was a kind of demonic sacrifice, her murder was, I mean, it kind of alludes to a sexual assault. That's just,
Yes.
I mean, I mean, it is. That was kind of a metaphor for that as well. And even in high school, the idea of a man having sex with a woman villainizes the woman, but it makes the men look like a celebrity. Like they become the cool one, like, oh, so and so slept with that. That's why there's so many movies of like guys making up stories about sleeping with women and how that made their life better and the woman's life worse. So in this case, it just literally took it as a we're gonna murder for fame, but at the same time, it could have been like we're gonna fuck for attention.
Right.
Um, as the way, I mean, look at Easy A, is that with Emma Stone, speaking of, which is an entire rumor about like a man having sex, even though it was made up, but like she got demonized for like being like the slut, even though this fictitious man that doesn't even exist, nobody bats an eye
Hmm.
at. He's not even real, but nobody knows that. So I think it's interesting that she isn't just going after the people who committed the crime against her, but just men in general, because when you're violated to that level of, yeah, when you're violated that much, it changes. I really do believe it does change who you are as a person. I think it makes trust harder. I think you react in different ways to it. You all deal with trauma differently. And for hers, she kind of doubled down on this like exploiting her body, and she knew she had power in her body and she could lure men in there and take them down, not really caring who was behind it. It just was triggered from this incident and men and being kind of the embodiment of what men want.
Hmm.
So I think that it's a very layered story,
Yeah.
um and I appreciate it. And although but again, it's so absurdist too. Like she's vomiting weird metallic-y, like when Jennifer first kind of transformed, she's vomiting all that weird metallic-y stuff all over Amanda, and then Amanda's like scared, or
Hmm.
Needy is scared. Um, it just it keeps it light despite being quite a heavy topic.
Yeah. They do like the band stuff does come back around. I've seen like some. I went did some reading and some people complained that the Jennifer didn't get to have the revenge of the on the band, and I'm like, well, that's because the movie is clearly about Needy. She's telling the story, and this was in a way the movie was something done to her because Jennifer was her friend, her love, her thing, and she's getting revenge on them for what they did to that, which upended her life just as in a way as much as Jennifer's, and getting revenge for Jennifer
Yes.
because that's what.
I think, but that's the other thing, is that Jennifer was so far by the end removed from
Yeah,
herself that it wasn't I mean, it's essentially like any vampire movie too,
yeah,
or like zombie movie. Like you have to kill the one you love once you're converted. Like you can't just sit there. Well, I mean, you can. It depends on what vampire universe we live in. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer is very different than like or Twilight is very different than certain horror movie vampires. But
yeah,
again, given the genre that this is classified under
yeah.
as horror, this is not like oh, we can work through your transformation.
Right.
No, this is she is slowly becoming a lesser version. I mean, we even catch on right away that there's something other world, like kind of supernatural about her when she's burning her tongue, and that naturally heals
Oh
itself
yeah.
right away, which is such a beautiful shot.
That's
This
iconic. I
movie
mean, you
has
see that on
so
the
many
internet all the time. Yeah.
so many beautiful shots in it. It's
Her
just
swimming and naked
there's
in
so
the
uh,
pond, the lake. That
stunning.
is awesome.
And I want to
Not just
ask,
because she's naked, but it's just it looks good.
but it doesn't show anything. Like
Yeah.
that's the other thing. Like it's not that explicit. Like it could have taken things so much. Like in the hands of men, this would have been a completely different movie, which
Oh,
is the whole
absolutely.
point.
Yeah. Well, in the hands of men, the
Um,
marketing was there's a lot of I've read a lot of stuff about what the challenges they had with marketing. Like apparently Kusama said the heads of the studio were gonna try to create a fake like porn site to have and ask uh, Megan Fox to do like video chats with men on it as a promotion for the
oh,
movie, and she was like, "Please don't even mention that to her." And they're like, "Well, we need to get boys in here for like 6 years. Like this isn't made for just boy." And you
oh,
see the old hat studio heads and their idiot thinking, and I. Even if this is marketed properly, quote unquote, I still think it turns out the same reaction wise and money wise. I just don't think at the time, I'm not gonna say people weren't ready for it yet, but the climate's different, and the audience for
Yes.
it probably wasn't going to be interested no matter what trailer you showed them. Um, but yeah, I was just
Yeah.
excited. I was like, oh, Diablo Cody, and it's her next movie, and she's doing horror. That's cool. That
Yeah.
had my interest.
That's true, and you're a straight man, so like, and you there's not enough trust in audiences half the time, and that's part of the problem with a lot of marketing of movies.
hmm
They try, and that again, this movie is kind of an attack on all of that. The fact that like I did not know that fact about like wanting to do like a fake porn site and having her do that, but now you wonder why Jennifer came back as a demon and just wanted to kill men as a whole.
Right? Yeah,
Like I mean, because it's like shit. Like the fact that you're making this actress for this movie play into like this thing, like, um, nowadays,
they want to
I
sell
mean,
Megan Fox is sexy, right, guys? like,
um, like who would have been brilliant if this movie came out today, who would have been really good in it,
hmm
but also would have been brilliant with the marketing, would have been like Sabrina Carpenter,
Oh
who
yeah.
had really recrafted and rebranded herself from her Disney days and everything else to like reclaim femininity in her way, reclaim sexuality in her way, and just like take ownership of it. Everything she did on her tour, everything she did with her promotion materials, there
hmm
was something kind of inappropriate about it, but she did it on her terms.
Right.
And that wasn't a thing back in the day, really. Or if it was tried to get like erased or like diminished or like silenced for it. So like a lot of Jennifer's body and like the humor and like kind of the satire of it kind of actually does relate. Like I feel like if anybody loves Sabrina Carpenter, they don't know this movie. Like this is the movie for them.
hmm
Because what she is doing in the media and with her own kind of representation of herself is she is like saying like she's just owning that aspect of herself, and I feel like that's what Diablo Cody was doing with this movie back in 2009,
hmm
is kind of what we're seeing now with women and like sexuality and all that, and then again like these sapphic undertones within this movie because it's not like that overt of a like a
Right.
lesbian um but like the sapphic undertones, like nowadays, I feel like there's so many movies with lesbian characters in it. It just this was kind of before the wave of just generally throwing lesbians in movie or lesbian references or sapphic references in movies because I feel like on social media now, I always see things being like an upcoming movie with a sapphic twist to it or blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, everything and that. But again, I get it. Men suck, but there are good ones out there. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, there are. But like in general, like I get it. Like women just want to like uplift other women and be with women. Like trust me, if I could, I would too at this point in time. But I'm not there yet. But I do think Diablo Cody was ahead of her time because of it and knowing and I feel like if that is public knowledge about the studio heads of trying to make Jennifer or trying to make Megan Fox do that stupid marketing that didn't happen, I can't imagine
Yeah.
what a conversation happened behind closed doors that Diablo Cody was privy to or Megan Fox was privy to that like we don't know about today or just like the passive aggressive comments or basically I'm sure probably the making of this film was like or the backstory of it felt a lot like what The Substance feels like to like the story of The
hmm
Substance felt like of just like being young and being hot and what that means and everything else. But I think Megan credit deserves a lot of credit or Megan credit. Megan Fox deserves a lot of credit for her
Yep.
performance and it's quite good. Amanda is still always like a lovable, engaging character, and I get why it's her story. Um, and and I like that Amanda took revenge on the guys for Jennifer because it was almost a way of her character, Needy, almost kind of having to forgive herself for like having murdered Jennifer.
Yeah.
But but she needed to. Like there was no way that she couldn't. It was this conflicted moment, and it was in that symbolic representation of the necklace being ripped off. The minute the necklace ripped off, like Jennifer momentarily became kind of human again.
Yeah.
Um, from that floating, and that caused her to sink. And I also liked that the mom walked in on it at the end, and I liked that there were consequences for Needy's
Yeah.
character.
It doesn't
Like
just end with her like, oh, I killed her at the end, I lived on. It's like, nope, this is what, really like, like the Friday the 13th, Jason gets put at the bottom of the lake and the police we don't find out about the police asking about the murders and where's the guy who killed him. It was in the lake.
yeah,
Let's not go in there. You know, just leaves with, we just leave it here. Like this one actually, gives the real world consequences for what happens, but it also frames it in a way that no one's believing the supernatural stuff.
yeah.
So
And
like,
no one would, but she escaped at the end and she got out. So, but like you are rooting for Needy throughout the movie, and then there is that big like Act 3 battle at the
mhm.
pool, with her boyfriend, with Needy's boyfriend getting murdered, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, for anybody to have seen or witnessed the context of it in this universe would have been like, oh, Needy killed her in self-defense.
Right.
I mean, like, even though technically in that moment when the murder happened, it didn't look like self-defense, but the reality is it was essentially, I think she could have gotten, like, I don't know. I mean, she need like Jennifer needed to die. Like I don't think there is
No.
a universe after everything that Jennifer could have lived without causing more harm to the world.
Right,
Um,
right. Or you have like a fairy tale esque ending where Needy and her live out in the middle of the boonies, and once every so often, once a month, she brings her a fresh male, lures one to the cabin, and she feeds her to Jennifer so she can stay
oh,
healthy and alive. One of those type of
yeah.
things.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been like a very weird version of like Death Becomes Her, but not really. Um, yeah. I mean that kind of moves into like Dexter territory too. It's like, okay, well, only kill these type of people if you're
Yeah,
gonna kill. Like Needy's like, okay, fine, I'll find you another like pedophile rapist for you to eat.
right. Yeah,
Like,
but he only
because
kills the bad ones.
yeah, but like, okay, well, okay, I take that back. There is a universe where I'm okay
Yeah,
with Jennifer living as long as she doesn't kill another innocent person and she uses her demonic powers for good.
there you go. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I want to add this movie some bad things that come from like this movie basically it's not the movie to do it, but it starts sinking Megan Fox and like 'cause she has Jonah Hex the next year, which that's a massive bomb, and then um starts getting her away from stuff. And Kara Kusama, like she is gone. She's in director jail until 2015 with the Invitation, which is a hell of a cool movie if you've ever seen it.
I have seen that
But
actually.
like, yeah, she's gone. Like, and then Diablo Cody said that this movie was like the reception period of this movie was one of the most unpleasant experiences for her in her career with and it kind of hurt her that this movie was rediscovered and appreciated because of the hell she had to go through with like I imagine a lot of gatekeepy type things like well horror all this stuff um and how she was treated with it once it came out so um but yeah I did
Yeah.
not Safe Raid is the only person who I think came out unscathed. Kyle Gallner begins well, he was in Haunting in Connecticut earlier in the same year, but this is the year he starts becoming a face of horror because he tends to hit back to that. Which last year had a cool movie called Strange Darling. I don't know if anyone on this has seen it, my listeners, but go check it out. It's a cool, very, very twisty turny fun movie fun to check out. But
Hmm. Well, justice for everybody who made this film
yeah,
because they created something that is actually poignant and relevant and entertaining and fun
gets better
and
every
it
time I watch it, honestly. Like
yeah,
it really does. Like I appreciate it even more every time I see it.
agreed. Agreed. I just that's really unfortunate that it really is unfortunate, especially for the director, where I'm like, she was good because again, in the wrong hand, wouldn't have worked.
Well, it's got stylish touches, lots of cool influences going around, like cool camera techniques, and uh, it's not boring to look at all. It's like looks
No.
like a freaking movie and not like a TV show. You know, like
Yep.
that's yeah.
And it has those grand sweeping shots. It also has like
Mm-hmm.
close-ups. It's a beautiful movie, even though it's a teen kind of campy, like it is campy.
Oh yeah,
It is
camp is all over here. And that's
yeah,
part of what helps
this
it
is
become a
a
cult
camp.
classic. Yeah.
That's true. Like yeah, like youngins who maybe listen to this podcast, like this is actually camp
Yeah.
because that word gets thrown around way too frequently, and I'm like, not always in the
People don't
accurate.
understand camp, but like camp isn't like always it isn't always like people tend to think like something like is in like unintentionally good because it's bad and they think that's
Yeah,
camp. I'm like that's it's not camp.
that's not.
It's not
No.
camp.
No, this is a good example of kind of that campy, um, but it is intelligent. Like this is an intelligent movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is clearly created by a group of intelligent people who were intentional in what they made. And for anybody to not understand it, and for people to not really understand that at the time, it's unfortunate because that again is a reflection of how shitty things were back then in terms of like way movies were perceived and other things too, because a lot of things got slipped under the radar and then
Yeah.
became good. Well, but then you have like then you have movies like Showgirls, which is well again 90s. We're going to go even further back, but
Yeah.
rejected at the time and now is definitely a cult classic
It's
and
one of the
what has been.
biggest midnight movies there is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And wasn't it like it's part of the Criterion Collection, I think,
No.
as well? No,
Isn't
not
it?
yet.
No. No.
Mhm. You're like, no, how dare you? I'm
Nope.
like, it's a
Well,
part
no,
of something.
I would know.
It's
I it's not in the
yeah, I
Criterion
know you would
collection.
know exactly. Well, it's a part of something. Like it got recognized somewhere significantly. Um, I know that. Like it wasn't Criterion, but it was something else that just like recognizes
With a
mo-
Vinegar Syndrome, that's a boutique label distributor, but they did it up really big with the 4K release. But they do
Okay.
cult movies and stuff like that.
But I mean, and it is so it is so ridiculous, but but it is good. But this movie, I mean, Showgirls and Jennifer's Body are not the same movie at all. But in terms of cult classics, but I mean, like Jennifer's Body is an intelligent, thoughtful movie that just is kind of packaged in a comedic horror bow with a comedic horror bow wrapped around it. Um, I think if the horror element was kind of downplayed, well, it wouldn't have been the same movie, but I think this movie could work on a lot of different ways, and I'm glad that she did it in the fun way that she did it. So respect to her and the team and the director and The Invitation. You're right, is a great movie. I didn't realize it was the same director. Um,
And she had that Nicole Kidman one called Destroyer, which was good too.
oh, I did see Destroyer. I
Hmm.
actually wait, I went to because that was an award bait movie back when that was a thing
Hmm.
because Nicole Kidman had all the makeup and everything else.
Yep.
Uh I went to a SAG screening of that movie with Nicole talking, and I want to say the director spoke at it too,
Yeah,
but
Karyn Kusama.
I don't know if I made that connection at the time. So great. That so you know what I've been in the well now I'm really sad I didn't make that connection at the time because I've been in the room with the director and I didn't say anything. So shame on me
Shame.
for that one. But yeah, I'm bad with remembering in the moment with things. I tend to be like very like focused in on what I'm seeing rather than all the web around it. So
That's
yeah,
fair.
but yeah, that's what your job is. You know all the connections and all. I'm just like,
Uh,
how does it make me feel? That's what I do. Well, and then like, by recently, the other day, I literally watched a horror movie that came out last year. Speaking of Sapphic, it's not entirely random that I'm saying it, called Low Lives. I think it's on Tubi. It's like a Tubi original movie called Low Lives. And again, like threw in some like sapphic lesbian moments in it. I'm like, this would just throw in like lesbians and everything. Great. Um, but it made me think of a horror movie that had lesbians in it that I just watched. Sorry.
Gotcha.
A
No,
great movie if you haven't seen it, which you probably haven't. It's called Low
I
Lives.
haven't. So I know of it. I just have not seen it. It's a
It is.
Tubi original.
Yeah. I'm gonna give a shout out to it. I it was it was interesting. You can tell it is kind of more of a lower budget movie, but it is well acted. It is interesting. It does take you on a journey. I think the ending goes on a little too long. That's my only critique of it. I think if
Okay.
they ended it 5 minutes earlier, it would have been a better movie. No, or no, not lies. I don't want to use the word better. I think it would have been a stronger ending if they just ended it like 4 minutes earlier. That's it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I was like I was on the fence at first, and then I was like, oh, this is getting good. Whoa, interesting, and it just kind of kept you on a journey, and I thought that was kind of cool. So support little movies like that too, and it had lesbians in it.
Hey, Tubi's big time. They had the Super Bowl this year, so
Oh,
there they are,
well,
right?
that I watched it. Yeah, I watched it on some network on like proper network TV at somebody's place, so wasn't
There you go.
aware that Tubi had it. Good for Tubi stepping it up.
Well, it's because it was on Fox this year, and Fox doesn't have a streaming service. They go through Hulu Live, and you have to pay for Hulu Live, so if you had Disney Plus and you linked it to Hulu, you could have to pay for Hulu Live. But Fox also owns Tubi, so they're like, all right, we'll throw it on Tubi too.
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, I think I actually just watched it on like Fox, because that's what my friends were watching it on. So, interesting. Well, Tubi is doing some good stuff. And the other day, what was I looking? Oh, because Jennifer Body played
It's on
it,
Tubi.
it's on Tubi. Like literally, I was like, that's where I watched it. I
Yeah.
was watching everybody on Tubi, and then after that, somehow it led me on a. Now I feel like you need to like without me clicking on anything, it just started auto playing, and I fell asleep, and then I like woke up, and it was just like a Sandra Bullock marathon that I got after this, and I was like, this is awesome.
Oh, mine went to
Thanks,
Easy
Tubi.
A. Mine went to Easy A after it.
Oh, I did go easy. I went Jennifer Body
Because I fell
to
asleep watching it when it popped it on. I was like, and I fell asleep the first time because it was late at night when I started it. And I woke up. I'm like, I don't remember Emma Stone in. I'm like, oh wait, this is Easy A. Like, I
no,
was
it was
groggy and
easy.
tired.
After that, it played like it wasn't Hopeful. Hope Floats was after the one that was after Easy A, but it was another Sandra Bullock one. So it was like Easy A, Sandra Bullock movie, then Hope Floats, and then one other Sandra Bullock movie. And I was like, this is great.
And I do
Like,
own the Blu-ray for this movie. I just was lazy and not in the room with my player, and I was like, all right, Tubi, there we go.
yeah, that's I have it on DVD actually, but that would just required more effort than me just being like Jennifer's Body, and
They
then it just starts.
actually one of the funniest like double feature Blu-rays there is you get Jennifer's Body and Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Oh, the Christy
the
Swanson
Christy
one?
Swanson one. Yeah, they're doubled up
Oh,
just because they're like girls horror, right? There you go.
oh no. How dare you put those two together?
Yeah.
That is that oof. Oof. And those are when did I mean,
I
yeah,
mean, the double
the
feature movie with this is Ginger Snaps. That's the one you watch together. Like they
yeah,
complement each other. But
very much. But not wait, what year did the original
Fox doesn't own Ginger Snaps, so they can't do that.
that is true, but Buffy to pair that's kind of like a slap in the face to Jennifer's Body to be. Although, okay, I mean it's been a minute since I've seen the Christy Swanson Buffy the Vampires. I mean, I thought that was a fun movie to be fair. I didn't hate
No,
that
it is.
movie.
It's fine. It's a fine. It's
A fun
fine.
movie.
It's
Yeah.
another movie that people didn't pick up. I know Joss Whedon has been like, "I didn't do my stuff right," which every time his stuff bombs, that's what he says. "I didn't do my stuff right." Like
Yeah.
Alien Resurrection, it's like there's plenty of you that we've seen enough of your stuff, bud. We can tell they probably made your movie with Alien Resurrection.
Yeah.
Which, because if you look at Firefly, Alien Resurrection looks like his first draft of Firefly, but good show. But no, Buffy, it's solid. It's just like the audience didn't see it or wasn't ready for it, because you go back and you're like, this doesn't fit my love of the TV show or what I want, what I ended up finding strong, but it's still there and it's solid enough.
It's a very different movie. Well, because I mean the TV show, I mean that's classic, and like that, like you can't beat Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Nope.
She refined everything, and it's coming back.
I
So
but those
like
the way she talked about it, sounds like it's a ways away, because they were like, "Oh, she's about to sign on." I'm like, and then she came out. I was like, "Hold up," which
well,
I'm weary of Buffy because I thought it ended wonderfully, and I'm like, that's why the I read the comics when Joss Whedon came back and was like, and the writers of the show were writing a comic series, and it was fun. It had the elements, but like everything, but like I don't know. I don't know. I thought it ended fine, and I've never been like, we need that back immediately. I'm just like, I like the way it ended. I was satisfied.
neither did Sarah Michelle Gellar say that it needed to come back. And what was I watching where I
But
was
Chloe
reading
Zhao
about
being like that now has me now like, okay, yeah. I
to
know all
push
the
this
Marvel
hard.
nuts will be like, ew, she did Eternals, but I'm like, she's a wonderful director.
Yes.
You see other movies aside from the superhero stuff, and you'll find wonderful entertainments. But, so I'm like, oh, if Chloe Zhao
I
has an idea for this, and Sarah Michelle Gellar's perceptive, I'm like, maybe,
Yeah. Well, I think what it is it's not signed on to a series, it's signed on for a pilot.
yeah,
Like so there's going to be one thing created for it. Whether or not anybody ever sees that is different. So
yeah,
I think they're making one episode. I think that's like where they're at. I think it is a little bit further in development than just
gotcha.
yeah,
Because
I think it is.
she's on the new Dexter show, so I'd imagine she's busy. But who knows? Maybe
Which I
maybe that's a
started
spoiler. She doesn't make it out of the new Dexter shows.
True, but I've started watching the new Dexter show. I only watched the first episode. It's interesting. I'm a really big fan of the original Dexter.
I'm a big fan of the first 5 seasons of the original Dexter, and
Okay.
then it got super bad for me.
Yeah,
But
I stuck with it. The new one is interesting. It's
I
really
heard it's
well.
not bad. I heard it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's really well cast. Like the guy playing young Dexter is, I mean, that was congratulations casting team because you nailed it.
From
Um,
what I hear about the new show, it's making me want to go back. I never watched the extra season they did
I
a couple
did.
years ago, because
I
I was just
did.
so turned off by the way that show was at the end. And then now I'm like, oh, maybe I should pick up Dexter again and carry through. But we'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, but the new one is entertaining, and I need to get back to it. That reminded me to go back and support Sarah Michelle
There
Gellar
we go.
because I love.
Of
Yeah.
course. All right. Well, Greg, this Dexter talk has been a spin-off of the Jennifer's Body discussion we had here. Once again, let people know where they can find you and when your books are going to be available.
You can find me on all social media platforms at the McGoonies. So my last name with IES at the end of it. And books available, the re-release of the Enchanted Edition, February 25th, and the brand new book that nobody has seen yet, is March 18th. And they should be available for pre-order, hardcover and paperback. I'm not doing that like crap where you're like, oh, buy the hardcover first and then release it on paperback. I'm just letting everything happen at once. So if you have the money to do a hardcover because you like hardcover, do that. If you want the paperback, do that. Doesn't make a difference to me.
Excellent, excellent. Looking forward to those. Okay, for me, I'm on the socials at Brandon4KUHD. I also have the YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to get this episode visually and or watch my Blu-ray and 4K reviews as well. PopCon's coming up this year. It is June 27th through 29th. You can sign up for the podcast stage, which I am again hosting and programming, or enter your podcast in the podcast awards, which I will be putting together and hosting. Look on popcon.us for all information, including guests and stuff. And there's another surprise coming with PopCon should be announced soon that I cannot talk about, but it's going to be cool. Next week, I am joined by author Stephen Warren Hill as he and I begin a retrospective on Andrei Tarkovsky. That will be a once a month thing, so it's not going to be every week. So once a month going through the filmography of the great Russian director, such films as like Solaris and Stalker. Definitely don't want to miss that. Until then, stay film positive.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.